head coached by Alyssa Liu. I don't believe we're having a national anthem, so they will be shaking hands and we will get started today. Emily, welcome.
Thanks.
As we have two former coaches here, we're excited to get started and talk about our two teams.
A little different view this time around. Well, we'll get started with our compulsory event shortly. We'll have Mars Hill come out first, followed by Coker.
The compulsory event consists of 4 heats: acro, pyramid, toss, and tumbling. The skills for the compulsory event represent the basic skills of the sport of acrobatics and tumbling. In this event, each team will execute the same skills for direct comparison. Each heat begins with a start value of a 10.0. The officials will be looking for strong body positions, 3-second holds, stability of structure, continuity of skills, strong catches, and solid landings. First up, we'll have Mars Hill, followed by Coker. Mars Hill being the number 3 seed, who made it here from the quarterfinal meet that was just this past Tuesday.
Yes, and this is their first time making it to the semifinals.
And here come the Lions from Mars Hill. A little fall there, but overall, I think the first part of compulsory acro was great for them.
Yes. Sync was together on those tuck-offs. Tuck-offs were high.
Height, yeah, extremely high. I think a lot of what we have to think about is it is a lot of pressure. Again, they've never made it here to the semifinals, and I think they were just super excited, and that adrenaline probably got to them a little bit. So she, on the switch up, went a little high, and, sometimes that'll happen. So they'll have a small deduction there.
Yes. Compulsory acro is always the most nerve-wracking of the meet. It's the first thing, and you want to go out and you want to be strong, but sometimes your nerves get to you and little things can happen.
As a coach, Emily, what would you be telling your team right now?
Oh, next play. I think every coach will be saying the same thing. Let's move on. That's over with, and let's go out in pyramids even stronger.
That's the cool thing about acrobatics and tumbling meets is there's so many heats and events that happen throughout the meet that you can gain these points back easily.
Yes. That's one of the things that I loved about acro is that you have the chance to make up those points.
And it's not just coming down to one routine you can definitely gain back the points. We're expecting a close match today as both teams were ranked 2 and 3, and they really have showed up this season. Mars Hill is coached by Olivia Kincaid, who is named the Conference Carolinas Coach of the Year.
Yes, and she is so deserving of that. This season they have gone from being the number 9 seed last season to being number 3 this season.
Which is a huge jump, yeah. She's recruited heavily. She's really focused on that team, and this is her second season at Mars Hill. And for Coker, we have Alyssa Liu, who was the former assistant coach. This is her first year as a head coach at Coker University, and she's carrying this team very well throughout the year. They're looking to come back and be in the championship meet against Limestone, who won the previous semis meet with a 240 overall score. So I know they're all coming out here to make it to the finals.
Yes. Now we have Coker.
Great execution by Coker. Synchronization was on.
Yes, that was beautiful.
Probably some minor
start.
deductions here.
Yeah. Little minor things, little sink in the full downs there. But other than that, that was really clean and a really strong start for Coker.
I think they were pretty excited about that one. And once you get the first heat under your belt, you're kind of like, okay, we can breathe.
Yes.
Next up will be compulsory pyramid. Again, these start values are all at a 10.0 for both teams, and they will be performing the same skills in the compulsory event. Emily, for pyramid, isn't it always, I just think it's always very comparable and very close.
Yes. Yeah, I think pyramid, you go out there and you compete that straddle pyramid, and it's a pyramid that is probably one of the first ones that you're teaching in acro. And it's so tight between all of the teams. Everyone executes it really well.
As to be expected, as that's, the building blocks of the sport. So I definitely agree with that. I think pyramid's always close. Toss can be close. A couple other things. But, yeah, I think. And because there's so many athletes on the mat at the same time.
Yes.
And now we have Mars Hill Lions for their compulsory pyramid. Beautiful pyramid.
Great pyramid by Mars Hill there. Both of their tops have beautiful straddle positions.
That's exactly what the officials are looking for, is that nice hyperextended position where you're above parallel. The flip-offs were great, the catches.
Nice high catches. That's what we're looking for with our bases there. There was one step at the end, but that's a minor deduction for them.
I would say, to be picky, a little lack of synchronization on the up, but overall, very, very well executed by Mars Hill. I expect the same from Coker over here, so it'll be good to see the difference. So something to note about the Conference Carolinas Championships for the NCATA, we have 5 officials for a championship meet, whereas a regular season meet would include 3 officials. So again, it's going to be more difficult as far as the scoring goes. They're going to be more picky on what they see. It's to their discretion on what they're deducting, but it is an average, so that's why you might see some lower scores from this meet.
Yes, and you'll have 2 of those officials looking at your tops. You'll have 2 of them looking at your bases.
And here's Coker with their compulsory pyramid. Another great pyramid from Coker. What did you think?
You could see those 2 tops looking at each other when they went up to make sure that they were synchronized.
Those are 2 very veteran tops there.
Yes.
I think I actually have a lot of seniors on their team, or a lot of them are veterans, so they're over here watching the video of their pyramid with Coach Lou, so I think they're pretty excited about it. You can always learn, from film and watching, and I think they can get excited over there and watching what they performed. So as a coach, you really want them to go out there and have fun and perform the way they do. Hopefully, if they practice that way. But you also, you want them to be relaxed. It is a competition setting, but it's also like, you want to go out there and execute the skills that you know how to do every single day. You do it, 10 times a day sometimes.
Yes.
Especially these compulsory skills. They can be very hard to synchronize. Next, we're going to have the toss heat. This will be a back salto tuck open toss. So you want to see them rise to the tops, and then have nice tight catches on the way into the cradle.
Yes, you want very little movement from your bases, especially throughout the toss, making sure they're not having to move to where the top goes. You want your top to stay perfectly in the center, and then you want those high, tight catches.
I will say one thing that Coach Olivia has been focused on is a lot of the height of the skill. They have executed that with their tops that they have and with the base structures. So the last couple meets I've seen them, they've really executed well on their toss heats.
Yeah, and even watching them warm up their tosses, those tops really ride it to the top before they tuck.
And with a 10.0 start value, we'll have the Mars Hill Lions. I would say synchronization was on.
Yeah.
Nice tight positions. To be a little picky, I would think they need to open up a little bit more before they get into the cradle position, but overall, great height and synchronization.
Yes, and really tight catches from those bases. So overall in those tuck tosses, what we want to see is we want to see the top go up to the highest point that they possibly can before they start tucking, and immediately after they tuck, we want to see them open up into a straight body position before they hit the cradle.
Just waiting on the officials to score, and then we will move on to Coker, who will perform the same skill. It's always really nerve-wracking when you have to wait.
Yes.
They're ready. And here comes Coker. Pretty good. I think there's a little bit of lack of sync at the top.
Yes.
One just, typically goes a little higher than the other, but overall, pretty strong catches.
Yeah, and we saw that open position from those tops after they tucked.
We keep running over there and watching their film, which is funny. That's good for them, though. They want to watch how they execute. Next up, we're going to have compulsory tumbling. Compulsory tumbling, I think, is one of the hardest to coach and for execution purposes. So we'll start at a 10.0 start value. We have 8 athletes on the mat. They perform a standing back tuck, a standing straddle back or a toe back, a standing back handspring back tuck, and a round up back handspring layout. Each of those skills they do have to stick, but it is the basics and building blocks of the tumbling skills that we require or ask that they have. And again, having 8 synchronized is super hard to do and coach. And so they, a lot of the times the scores aren't going to be a 10, but they will be up there. And they do have 5 officials. So 2 are looking at one side, 2 are looking the other side, and they have to have a good average to come out on top.
I agree that compulsory tumbling is one of the hardest heats in our compulsory event.
And first up, we'll have Mars Hill. Great job by the Lions. Small deductions that you'll see is going to be the hops and steps, improper body position. So in that layout, you want to see a nice tight layout position and rise before they land. There was a few that kind of had a little pikey position. I don't know, Coach, what else did you see?
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing as you. Overall, great job by the Mars Hill Lions on that heat. Like Miranda was saying, just those body positions in the layout as your feet are coming to the ground. We don't want to see a pike position. We want to see you completely laid out. But overall, I think it was a good heat.
There are different stylistic approaches to the landings or how to stick the landing. There was a differentiation between Belmont Abbey and Limestone earlier. So just for our viewers, that's just stylistic approach. It's not a deduction if somebody doesn't do it the same. So I think pretty much they do the same thing here at this meet. Next will be Coker. Looks like they have a lot of veteran athletes out there going out for their compulsory tumbling.
Usually it'll take the officials a little bit longer to score that heat just because there are so many athletes that they are looking at, and typically more deductions than what you would see in our acro pyramid or toss heat.
Yes. Tumbling is the biggest part of our sport, I think, as far as having 6 heats and tumbling event too. And here come the Cobras. Great effort out there today for Coker. I'd say their layouts were pretty good.
Yeah.
The sticking position. And that's what you want to see.
Yes, I agree.
Small synchronization.
Small deductions, a few feet apart in the standing tumbling portion. A lot of these athletes, when they're coming in, if they're coming from gymnastics, a lot of these standing skills is not something that they practiced often. And it's also the toe touch, back tuck is not something that they have done before. So that's always a big learning curve coming in and having to learn these skills and on a hard floor.
I would say if they are doing it, they're on the beam.
Yeah.
So they're not used to that, being on a hard surface like that. While we wait on the scores, we will introduce our next event, which is our acro event. The acro event consists of 3 heats, and it marks the beginning of the optional portion. Each team will compete the skills that are previously chosen with different possible start values. There will be between 2 and 4 athletes on the floor in each of the heats, as many as 8 in the synchronized heat. Heat 1 is the 5-element acro. Heat 2 is 6-element and is synchronized, and Heat 3 is 7 elements. The start value of each is determined by the difficulty and combinations of each skill. Each position must be held for 3 seconds. The officials will be looking for the body position of the top, stability of the base, and continuity of skills. This event demonstrates power, strength, and balance. The acro event is always where you can show off your abilities. Each heat has to have an inverted skill. So some teams choose to do a hand-in-hand position, others do a non-handstand inversion. I will say that was never our strength as a team when I was coaching. We had some really great handstanders, but other than that, we always kind of did the inversion non-handstand. But this is kind of what will set each other apart. I will say in the semifinals match prior to this meet, against Limestone and Belmont Abbey, it definitely was a little close. They had some minor bobbles here and there, and so I think this is a great start. I know Mars Hill Olivia has spoken about how they've worked really hard on their handstand positions. She came from an acrobatic gymnastics background, so she's really focused on that with her team. And I know Coker has some good handstand athletes as well.
Yeah, and that just speaks to this event. The coaches and the athletes really get to play to their strengths. So now they get to decide what skills they do. Different than the compulsory event where you are given the skills that you compete, and both teams will be competing the same. The acro event, you get to play to your strengths and come up with your own sequence of skills. So you'll see these two teams do very different skills. I'm just looking at the first heat, 5-element heat. We're going to see two completely different skills from both teams.
Alrighty, I think the scores are in for compulsory. For Mars Hill, for the acro heat, was a 5.950. Coker was an 8.725. For the pyramid heat, Mars Hill with a 9.125 and Coker with a 9.575. And for the toss heat, Mars Hill with a 9.025, Coker with a 9.400. And for Mars Hill, for the tumbling heat, we have a 6.675, and for Coker, a 6.375. Putting our running totals at Mars Hill with a 30.775, and Coker with a 34.075. So just a little bit ahead as Coker goes into the acro heat. You know, unfortunately, Mars Hill had the fall.
Yeah.
So in acro heat, so that's what really set them apart. So now if they can recover in all these heats, hopefully they can gain back those points. First up, Mars Hill is going to go out with a 10.0 start value. Great job from Mars Hill. Coach, how would you analyze that one?
They started off really strong with that walk-in and the 180 shoulder-to-shoulder release with a full-off. That was really clean, her full-off. She was in a straight body position the entire time. So a little bit of deviation on the inverted non-handstand position. At the end, the bases were able to shift a little bit to get her in the right position, but overall I think it was a strong start for Mars Hill.
I agree. I think those releases were high and to the level that they want to be at. You also had that laid out tight position. I would say like a little bit of lower landing.
Yes.
So the officials, again, are probably more picky than we are.
Yes.
But a great start. That was a 10.0 start value, and Coker is going to also have a 10.0 start value. So again, they're going to have little variances in skills that they're competing, but they have put that into their start values and go to their strengths.
And Coach Olivia did mention that this was their strength. She said they worked really hard to get all 10.0 start values in their acro heats and feels like this event is one of their strongest. And they started off strong with that 5 elements, so we'll see how we continue.
And now we'll have Coker with a 10.0 start value. Very well executed for their 5-element acro. As we talked about the variances, so that was an extended hand-in-hand position where she pressed down into that straddle position. So very different than what Mars Hill competed, but again, still the same start value.
And that takes so much strength, that extended hand-in-hand position with one base underneath it, and the strength and body control of the top to control that handstand position until you get that second base in there to help out.
It was an interesting choice that they chose to do it from the side, but I think it was because of the straddle pop to that position,
Yes.
so they didn't have to move. So again, that's a coach's preference as well. Whatever they've been getting deductions on, and they're able to turn it whichever way. They have a lot of seniors over here, so that was a pretty good veteran group that they had out there. The next heat will be our synchronized heat for 6-element acro.
Yes, and it looks like Mars Hill will have a toe pitch full off to start the event, similar to what we saw in their 5-element heat. Seems like that's their strength. That's what they're going to play towards.
And here's Mars Hill. A lot of difficulty in that 6-element. A little bit of synchronization issues. Again, that's probably one of the hardest things, to make sure that each of these difficult skills are synchronized.
Yeah. And this heat changed a few years ago from being one group to being a synchronized heat to mirror what we do in our pyramid and toss events. And it is very difficult to figure out skills that you can get two entire groups to compete and execute at a high level with a 10.0 start value.
I agree. I can tell that they've definitely worked on that. They have a lot of amplitude and height on their full-offs. The layout on the right side had some small bent knee issues on the layout. Other than that, though, pretty body positions. And I know the officials will probably look at small bobbles here and there. But overall, I don't know, my goal as a coach was tell them to go out there and hit their skills. Yes. I don't care how you do it, just stay in the air.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest deductions that you will get, is if something does fall. So
and if you can't make up that skill.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
So another thing to note is we do have 45-second clock going. One thing in the acro event is you can end your skill in the air. So some people don't know that, but we know, and then the officials know how they declare their end skill.
And they just have to get that end skill in before that 45 seconds.
If not, they will get that clock violation.
Yes.
Coker will also come out with their synchronized heat at a 10.0 start value.
So we'll see some similar skills to Mars Hill in this one. Looks like they're going to do a tuck off, go straight into a toe pitch, and do a layout off.
Didn't quite make that last skill, but overall very clean, high layout, high tuck off. I would say this right side, they kind of shifted in a little on that layout. So that'll be a minor deductions there.
Yeah, they both of those tops had great landings on their tuck offs and on their layout offs.
And if you notice on the right side, they switched tops twice. So you can do that within the same group as long as it's listed. But I can tell that those tops, they're both very experienced. So they know that their strengths, and they know one does better at the toe pitch and one does better at the walk-in. So as a coach, she's doing a great job at, adjusting for that. The next heat will be the 7-element acro heat. This will be an individual group as how it is with the 5-element acro. Mars Hill again with a 10.0 start value.
And very similar skills to what they did in the last 2 heats. We're going to see that full off again.
I think as a coach over here, it's really important to keep your team morale up when something falls, especially when they're not used to it.
Yes.
But they've been working hard, and you got to keep remembering there's so many chances to make up those points. So,
yeah, talking to the coaches before the meet, a lot of them mentioned that their focus is the mental aspect of the meet. And being able to come back from a fall and be able to compete and still be confident in your skills and the next thing that you do is super important.
Mars Hill is anxiously awaiting to compete their 7-element acro.
It looks like we will see Zoe Franklin again. You will see her a lot throughout the meet. She made first team all conference for Mars Hill.
Conference Carolinas. Now Mars Hill is going to compete their 7-element acro. They're excited about that 7-element. The height on her pull off is incredible. A little bit of pike at the end, but landing was great. They might count it as a little bobble when she was switching over before they went to the extended 1-to-1, but impressive skills from Mars Hill.
Yeah, and a lot of times those transitional skills where you're just moving from the base, holding your hands to the base, holding your feet can be some of the toughest skills that you will do in acro.
To be able to execute and not have any bubbles. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And then we saw that base push the top all the way to the extended position by herself. That takes great strength and control from both of them to be able to execute that.
I think coach is probably very happy they were able to recover from their compulsory acro event or heat, and now they completed their acro event.
Yeah.
Next, Coker will come out for their 7-element acro heat. Their start value is a 10.0.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to see Similar skill to Mars Hill, where they're also going to have that 1-to-1 where the base pushes the top up to extended by herself. And the same dismount of twisting 360 degrees down.
Very impressive skills. That 1-to-1 shows the strength of the base structure, the core strength of the top. You know, the base and the top working together, which I think is one of the coolest things about our sport is, you know, there's so many different aspects to it, and different athletes can have different strengths and compete a whole meet.
Yeah. One thing to mention about the acro event is it does matter how you pair up skills. So you want a difficult skill going into another difficult skill is going to increase your start value.
Which both teams have been able to start with a 10.0 start value.
Yes.
And that's actually, this is the first meet I've seen both teams match up at a 10.0 for each heat in the acro event.
Yeah, 10.0 is really hard to get in every single acro heat, and both of these teams have been able to do it, and they're also executing them pretty well.
And here comes Coker. Another solid heat from Coker. They do a really good job at using their tops for what they're good for.
Yes, for sure. We will see a little bit of a deduction for that second base coming in and grabbing the top whenever they did their 180 pop around. With acro, you have to declare the skills that you are going to do prior to the meet. And if you do anything different than that, then that is a deduction. And it looks like they declared it as one base to one base, and we had that second base grab at the end. But a lot of times you tell your athletes to do that because that's better than falling and not being able to do the next skill.
Right. No, I agree 100%. So while we wait on the scores, we will introduce the next event. The next event is the pyramid event. This is our final event in the first half. In the pyramid event, athletes will build 3 layers in a structure. The start value of each heat is determined by the difficulty and the combination of entry, structure, and dismount. The pyramid event has 3 different heats with different requirements for each heat. Heat 1 must have an inversion, Heat 2 must be synchronized, and Heat 3 is an open heat. Key things the officials will be looking for: a hold by the top for 3 seconds following the entry, stability of the structure, and a smooth dismount that ends with either a catch or a landing. You'll see some different variations in pyramid event. A lot of times they will be close in start values. I see that Mars Hill has a 9.8 start value for their inversion heat and 9.7 for Coker. So small variances, but that inversion heat is very difficult to get a 10.0 these days. It's all based on the structure, combination of the skills with the entry and the dismount, as well as the position of the top. So I don't know, what is your favorite? I always love the bridge pyramids because I think they're impressive, but also like the 1-to-1 pyramids.
Yes, I agree. When I was coaching, our strength was the hand-in-hand pyramid, the inverted skill, and then we did bridges. So those were definitely my favorite as well. Seeing the bridges, like the strength from that bottom layer.
I've always been impressed with inversion skills. Alrighty, we have our scores for acro. For Heat 1 for Mars Hill, 8.825. For Coker, a 9.700. And for 6-element acro for Mars Hill, 7.850. And for Coker, a 6.100. And for our 7-element acro, for Mars Hill, 8.825. And for Coker, a 7.650. That puts our totals at Mars Hill, 25.500. And for that heat or event, a 23.450 for Coker. Our running total, Mars Hill, 56.275. And Coker, 57.525.
So Mars Hill was able to close that gap.
It was a pretty big gap before.
Yeah.
So now by executing their acro event, which is what Coach Olivia was talking about. So now we will see our inversion pyramid from Mars Hill. Incredible by that top for saving that and pushing through to that extended hand-in-hand position.
That takes incredible strength to be able to press that up like that. That was an amazing save.
So she will receive a little bit of a deduction of a lack of continuity to the top, I would say, and a little bobble. But overall, incredible from, was that number 25?
Yes, yep, number 25. And she was still able to get out there and hold that skill for 3 seconds. That's always one of your concerns as a coach when they do have that lack of continuity on the way up, is that they're just going to shoot over right into that cradle position. But she was able to still control it and still hold for 3 seconds at the top.
The dismount looked pretty good. That 360 twist to the cradle, strong catch. I think they were just really impressed with the fact that she pushed it back up there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that is impressive. So really great job from Mars Hill.
Yeah, you could see their sideline.
Getting so excited
Yes.
and cheering. I know, their coaches too.
Yes. That's one of the greatest things about this sport is that you get the chance to support your other teammates when they're out on the floor. Something that's different about acro than some other sports.
I agree there. More team camaraderie, and you can see the leadership and all of that. I do think that that's perfect. Alrighty, and for a 9.70 start value, we have Coker. Another well-executed inversion pyramid. So the variance in that is that extended position and pressing down into that pike position.
Yeah, great start for Coker on their pyramid event. That pyramid looked really solid, had great control from the top.
I would agree. Stability, they'll have like small lack of stability there from the base structure all the way to the top. I think that's really hard to do because there's so many people involved. And the second heat is going to be our synchronized heat. This is where you'll see the differences of some teams will have, a thigh stand pyramid, or some teams will have the bridge pyramid.
It looks like for Mars Hill, we're going to see a bridge with a straddle position. And the same for Coker. They're going to be two
bridge pyramids. Nice.
bridge pyramids and the straddle position for our tops. One thing to mention is that for each of these pyramids, our tops have to do a different body position. So if we're seeing straddles right now, they cannot compete a straddle again for that third heat.
So most likely you'll see a pike position, or you'll see a one-man pyramid, or a different variation of an inversion. And Mars Hill comes out with a 10.0 start value. Mars Hill has all the energy.
Very strong pyramid by them. So a little bit of lack of sync on the way up again, similar to their compulsory pyramid. I believe those are the same tops that we saw in compulsory pyramid. But again, beautiful straddle positions, great dismount.
It's very solid as far as the dismount and the straddle positions. You know, those pyramids, again, they have a mid-base standing on a bridge pyramid. And I think that's extremely difficult.
Very difficult skill to learn, very difficult skill to also compete.
So now we will have Coker, who will go out for their synchronized heat.
And
competing the same
pyramid. Yep. They will compete the same pyramid that we just saw from Mars Hill. So it'll be nice to see the comparison between the two teams here.
And here we go with Coker with a 10.0 start value. Impressive holds from their bridge pyramids. This one over here, her foot, the mid-base's foot was sliding off, and she managed to hold it very well. So
very impressive.
Again, you're comparing apples to apples on that one, but each team has their own different strengths. We had an athlete over here warming up who they just had to get her up off the ground. So everybody's cheering for that too.
Yes. Great to see that she's okay.
Okay, our last and final heat before we enter halftime is our open pyramid. So open pyramid has no requirements. You can go out and compete whatever skills that you haven't already competed.
Exactly. And it looks like for Mars Hill, we're going to get that one-man position. Similar to what they did in their acro heats. Now they're going to put it up into a pyramid, taking it another level higher.
So a lot of these pyramids you might see tomorrow for event finals at 11 a.m. And that is for Conference Carolina's Event Finals Championships. We will be presenting live, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And now is Mars Hill with a 10.0 start value. And the energy is high once again for Mars Hill. A great pyramid overall.
Yeah, I saw very little deductions with that. We saw the top Zoe Franklin when she came down to that shoulder level. She flashed that smile. She knew it was a great pyramid.
And they're shooting to score a 10, hopefully.
I mean, I saw very little deductions.
It was pretty. It was very pretty.
I think it'll be up there.
It's always very impressive. Again, so they took whatever acro skill that they competed and were able to put it on a thigh stand. So that's incredibly impressive for that mid base as well. Props to everyone in that pyramid.
Yes.
But great job overall. And now we will see Coker.
And they will be competing a pike pyramid, so completely different than Mars Hill. So this, again, goes back to playing to your team's strength, doing the skills that you think that your team will be able to execute the highest. And we'll see them do a pike pyramid with a 360 flip down for their last heat.
And here comes Coker. Very solid pyramid from Coker, that beautiful pike position. The legs were together, feet together. It all looked very nice.
He has great dismount. Both teams doing really well in the pyramid heats. I think this is going to be pretty tight going into halftime here.
So we will take a short break and we will come back 3 minutes before the second half to talk about the scores.
All right, and we are back, and we have our scores from our pyramid heat. In Heat 1, we had Mars Hill with an 8.375 and Coker with a 9.2. Heat 2, we had 8.525 for Mars Hill and a 9.350 for Coker. In Heat 3, we had a 9.8 for Mars Hill and a 9.275 for Coker. Bring our pyramid totals to a 26.7 for Mars Hill and a 27.825 for Coker. And our overall scores are now 82.975 for Mars Hill and an 85.35 for Coker.
And now we'll be heading into the toss event. So in the toss event, you will see 4 athletes and a teammate being tossed into the air. The teammate tossed into the air, known as the top, will execute a flip or a twist before being caught. There are 3 heats in this event: 450 salto heat, the synchronized heat, and an open heat. The synchronized toss features 2 toss groups. These groups should look exactly alike and be in sync. The start value for the toss depends on the skills that the top executes in the air. Officials will be looking for extension of the top, the height of the top when executing their skill, and the top's body position and tight catches from the bases. And Mars Hill will be competing a back double toss,
Yep.
with a 9.90 start value. That was absolutely beautiful.
That was a beautiful toss from Mars Hill. You saw how high that toss went, and the body position of the top was incredible.
That was pretty textbook, if you ask me. I think that they've competed it one other time this season, and so she's reaching high to get those high start values, and I think that is paying off for Coach and Mars Hill team. And
we will see a back full toss for Coker. So a little lower start value. You'll see her do 1 twist instead of 2 twists that Mars Hill just did.
Sometimes it's not necessarily that they can't execute that skill, it's just not as clean. So coach's discretion, Coach Lou just talked about how she did have to switch around tosses a little bit. So, but they do have a 9.4, a 9.4, and then they have a 9.9 as their open heat. So you'll see that same double full toss again. And here are the Cobras with their 450 salto heat. Great body position in the air. I think a little bit of deviation there. Group movement.
Yeah, a little bit of group travel. They had to move a little bit to the left, but overall, great toss for Coker as well. For me, tosses were one of the most nerve-wracking things because there's so much that can happen in a toss that will have to cause the group to move or shift a little bit. It can feel just slightly off.
Mm-hmm. The whole group has to work together.
Yes.
And that's extremely important. I think that Mars Hill's worked really hard on that as well. They just seem very cohesive over there, working together, always cheering for each other, doing the best that they can.
Yeah, and Coach Lou over at Coker said that her strength for her team is going to be this second half. And a lot of what she has done throughout the season is building on to skills. So you might have seen them earlier in the season do a little bit easier skills, but they wanted to make sure that they got the athletes' confidence up before they took it to those higher start
level.
values.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is a very smart coaching move.
Yes.
And we have a 9.40 start value for Mars Hill. Great body positions in the air. I would say just a lack of synchronization on the set out. So the officials are watching until that top's feet hit the ground. So just a minor deduction there. Maybe a lack of extension from the tops or bases or both.
Yeah, I would agree. There was a little bit of lack of sync between the two groups, but overall, another great toss for them. And we're going to see the same toss from Coker.
In Conference Carolinas, we work hard to help build champions in body, mind, and soul. We are proud of our tradition and are committed to taking it to an even higher level in the years to come. Please visit conferencecarolinas.com to learn more about Conference Carolinas and all our amazing member institutions. I think Mars Hill is trying to come out and close the gap even more after Pyramid.
Yeah, we have a close meet going on right now, and it's going to come down to the little details. Another thing that Coach Lou told us before the meet was that that's been their focus, is that they're focusing on the details and capitalize on every opportunity to gain an extra 10th throughout the meet.
And here come the Cobras with their synchronized toss heat. Again, same skills as Mars Hill competed. Very clean. I'd say, they could probably reach the peak before they flip a little bit better, but I think overall very clean from both sides.
Yeah, good tosses so far.
Now we'll move on to our open toss heat. Mars Hill has a start value of a 9.50, and Coker has a start value of a 9.90.
So for Mars Hill, what we're going to see is a full toss, but they are going to add a kick to it. So we'll see that kick full toss. And then for Coker, we will see that back double toss. So it looks like they just put their heats in different orders. So we saw the back double from Mars Hill in their first heat, and we'll see it from Coker in their last heat.
Some coaches will do that, just flip-flopping them and seeing how they do. If if your open heat has to wait too long and they don't perform as well, or whatever the issue may be.
Yeah. As a coach, you want to think about if that top is in the second heat, which one do you want them competing the harder skill in, the first or the last?
Whereas I think they started with the full, and she'll probably end with the double.
Yeah.
And here comes Mars Hill with a 9.50 start value. Very high toss. She did kick full toss.
Yeah, I think there'll be minor deductions there. We saw her pike down a little bit at the end, but overall great toss. Those bases had that high, nice catch.
I'd say, yeah, just the pike is what I see. The extension's there. She just kind of pikes through before she gets to the cradle.
Yeah, and that skill's a hard skill to compete, especially because you're adding that kick in there. A lot of times the tops want to rush that kick to get it in, or don't quite get it high enough to be the correct body position in that kick. But she seemed to do it just fine there.
Yeah, it was beautiful. They're doing much better throughout this meet. I think they should be extremely proud, both teams.
Yeah, so far we've seen a lot of strong skills. And you can tell that these athletes are confident in their skills and that they've been competing them throughout the season and feel great about them.
Just waiting on them to score Mars Hill, and then we'll move on to Coker, who has a 9.90 start value with that double full toss. What I love to see in the semifinals meets today, just the level of difficulty that is increased over the years. And here comes Coker. I'm very excited about that toss. Again, a difficult skill to execute really well. I would say, she kind of rushed it a little bit, maybe some feet across.
Yes, but great body position in the air. Great catch from the bases again. Coker always does a really great job of their tops being in the correct position when they hit the cradle and their bases having high catches.
As their scores have shown that as well. While we're waiting on the scores, we'll talk about our next event. Our next event is Tumbling event. This event has 6 heats. The first 3 are synchronized group tumbling passes, a duo, trio, and a quad. And the last 3 are individual tumbling passes. The start value of each heat is determined by the difficulty and combination of skills in each pass. Officials will be looking for a synchronization in the first 3 heats, as well as the continuity of skills and acceleration of the pass, proper body positions during skills, and the body position and control of the landing. With this being 6 heats in this event, it is a big weight other than team event of the meet. So I know that both teams have worked on their start values all year long to try to excel. And I think Coach Lou put it well, where she had some of her athletes doing skills just to build their confidence going into competition or conference season and championships, and make sure that they had the skills down in practice so that they could compete them at a high level. So I think that's what you'll see today. And overall, both teams have done great.
Yeah, she made a point to point out that earlier in the season, we saw one of her athletes that now has a 10.0 start value in her tumbling pass. She was competing a lower level skill, and they added to it throughout the season. And the reason that they had competed at the lower level was to get her confidence up before she went to those higher level skills.
And to add to that, she's the first 10.0 pass that Coker has ever had in history.
Yeah.
So I think she's excited to have her athletes perform that pass.
Yeah, and tumbling can make the biggest difference in the meet, especially because there can be a wide range of skills, a wide range of start values.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at it here, we have pretty close start values. And as long as both teams execute well, I think we'll have a tight meet going into team event.
Agreed.
This is the part of the meet where you'll see a lot of our athletes on the sideline trying to stay warm, trying to keep warming up skills as they still have 2 events left.
2 of the harder events.
I was about to say that. 2 of the tougher events.
I think tumbling and team event are a lot of people's favorites, and it's high energy, individual skills and team skills. And it looks like we have our scores. For the toss heat 1 for Mars Hill, we have a 9.775. And for Coker, an 8.60. For the synchronized heat for Mars Hill, 8.450. And for Coker, an 8.125. And for the open heat for Mars Hill, 8.575. And for Coker, a 9.100. Our running total for that event, Mars Hill, 26.800. And for Coker, 25.825, which leads our running total to Mars Hill with a 109.775 and Coker with a 111.175. So, again, still closing that gap a little bit more. This, to me, is a super close meet.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that can happen in this tumbling event for them to come back to the lead.
Exactly.
Okay, and with an 8.75 for Mars Hill, we have number 9, Reese Goldberg, and number 21, Caitlin Huffman.
They competed a round-off whip to a back pull.
One thing we always point out in tumbling event is this is a hard surface. This is not a spring floor, so these athletes generate their power through their technique and their own power.
And connecting 2 non-hand skills together is extremely difficult, and that's what we just saw from Mars Hill.
They had a lack of synchronization.
Yeah, little lack of sync. And when we're looking in tumbling event, we want to look at every single skill. They will get a deduction if they are not synchronized in each of those skills.
Overall, pretty clean body positions. I would say that back pass just landed a little short. So they are allotted that controlled step. So a lot of teams will either, if you're doing a 1.5 skill, you're landing, you step forward, controlled, not too much power. Same with if you're going backwards, you can take that controlled step back. And that's what the officials are looking for.
For Coker, we'll have completely different skills. They will be competing a round-off back handspring 1.5 into a round-off back handspring full.
With a 9.55 start value. We have number 5, Anna Kate Barrier, and number 8, Olivia Sisson. Very difficult pass to get synchronized. Minor deviation from number 5 there. She just landed a little bit short. So they're going to get a lack of continuity, I think, from that, but and the short landing. But overall, very impressive skills.
Yeah, and there we saw Liv Sisson, and she is the one that we were talking about earlier that has that 10.0 pass in their open heat. So we're going to be seeing her tumbling again.
Next up will be the trio pass. And for Mars Hill, they have an 8.75 start value.
Yeah, and they're going to be competing a round off 1.5. Another discretion that's up to the team and up to the coaches is we'll see people compete round off 1.5s, and we'll see people compete round off back handspring 1.5s. And it really depends on what your team strength is and what your strategy is going into this.
Sometimes it's less skills, less deductions. Sometimes it's just cleaner with the 3 that you have or preference of the athlete. A lot of gymnasts that I had would do the round off skills. They love doing round off fulls, 4.5s. So for their trio pass from Mars Hill, we're going to see number 28, Victoria Chambers, number 2, Jocelyn Wint, number 27, Leah Whitman. So a veteran group, 2 seniors and 1 junior. Really pretty round off 4.5s there. A little bit of a wacky controlled step on the middle athlete, but I think really overall it was pretty controlled in general.
I would agree. Great pass by Mars Hill. One of the things that Coach Olivia has talked about is that when they started the program, these freshmen are now seniors. So we saw 2 of those seniors competing in that heat. And she said that's what's really special about this year is that those freshmen are now seniors.
And leading their group. And they've done really exceptionally well. As you can tell, her recruiting has been on par as well.
Yeah, she's done a great job of going into this program and improving their skills throughout the years. You saw it every single season. They got higher and higher start values. They got cleaner and cleaner skills, and now it's paying off.
Absolutely. And for Coker, their trio, they have a start value of an 8.75.
They'll be competing a round off back handspring 1.5.
So again, same start value, just variation in skills. Just waiting on them to score. But for the trio for Coker, we'll have number 1, Sasha Thompson, number 6, Lilia Brzezowski, and number 4, Tessa Grudel. Small lack of synchronization, but pretty good skills there.
In our tumbling heats, what we want to see is that controlled step that Miranda was talking about earlier. And what's really hard is when they are landing and facing the opposite direction is that it's really hard to control that step out.
That over rotation.
Yes.
So there's small deductions for over and under rotation that some of these athletes might get. They're very hard skills to stick on this floor, especially because it is hard too, a hard mat.
Yeah, both teams are doing great so far. A lot of times when you get to the end of the season like this and you've had a long season, this is one of the hardest events on your body, and both teams are coming out strong.
Next will be our quad heat. Both teams have a start value of an 8.0.
Mars Hill will be competing a round off back handspring full. And it looks like we are going to have the same for Coker, round off back handspring full.
And for the quad pass For Mars Hill, we'll have number 15, Delaney Gamson, number 3, Bobby Russell, number 20, Arwen Mammer, number 8, Lucy Starnes. So we've got a freshman, 2 sophomores, and a senior. Very, very solid fulls there. It's always very impressive when they can get close together and throw those fulls and have great technique. I would say that was very solid.
Yeah, their synchronization was great. And usually that's the hardest pass to have synchronization with all 4 athletes, but they did it great there. We're going to see the same skill competed by Coker here.
This is just going to come down to cleanliness from that trio and quad. Cleanliness, landings, feet together, all those small deductions to be able to come out with as many points as you can. This will be the last heat before we move on to our individual passes. And for Coker, for their quad pass, we're going to have number 10, Amber Garcia, number 15, Kaylin Francavilla. We're going to have 27, Chloe Hull, and number 3, Holland Duhame.
Amber Garcia is one of those names that we've been seeing throughout the meet.
As well as Kaylin Francavilla. I think Coach Lou talked about how her leadership has been this year, and she's stepped up whenever she's needed her to. Just a reminder that tomorrow we're going to have our event finals at 11 a.m. here in the Student Center in Bristol, Tennessee. And then we will also have our finals championship meet at 5 p.m.
Event finals is always one of the funnest events of the weekend. There'll be so many teams competing. We're going to have Wingate coming in, who was a team that didn't make it to the semifinals, but will be competing in the event finals tomorrow.
Everyone's supporting each other. It's the highest overall combined average scores for each heat. And now we're ready for Coker's quad pass. Very clean also.
Again, great synchronization.
Both teams have done a really good job with synchronization, I think, in all 3 heats. And it's going to come down to, I think, these individual passes doing well and then team event. I know Mars Hill and Coker both really want this to move on to the finals tomorrow. It's been a long weekend, and Mars Hill had to compete this past week, so
we'll be entering our individual passes here.
The first heat will be the aerial pass. Then we're going to have our 6 element and then our open pass. Mars Hill has a start value of a 9.55, and then so does Coker, 9.55. So very similar start values. It's going to come down to execution.
For Mars Hill, she's going to be competing a front handspring, front tuck, round off back handspring, 1.5. One thing to mention with these individual passes is that at least one of these has to have a front skill in it. And here we're going to see that front skill from Mars Hill.
And for the aerial pass, Nasiri Mond, number 5. A lot of power from that pass. I think she was supposed to end in a full and a half, and she just did a full, which that will be a minor deduction. Well, 0.5, I guess, for not executing the skill that was stated, but beautiful. She should get minimal deductions on everything else.
Agreed. She had great power in that pass.
And for our next pass, for our aerial pass for Coker, is a 9.55 start value.
And we're going to see the same skill. The front handspring, front tuck, round off back handspring, 1.5.
And for Coker, we're going to have number 5, Anna Kate Barrier. And here she is. Front handspring front through a full and a half. Little deviation on the step for the landing, but overall, she'll get minor deductions.
Saw Coker there with the celebration at the end. That was a great pass.
I would say, she's going to get a little bit of continuity and lack of amplitude on that front skill as she didn't rise. It all kind of stayed the same level. So overall, I think she's just really happy she landed on her feet. And
yeah.
She's doing well. Next up, we're going to have the 6th element pass. So it's exactly as it sounds. Six skills are going to be performed in this pass. For Mars Hill, they have a start value of a 9.55. And for Coker, they also have a start value of a 9.55. Again, all of their start values have been very close.
And all of their skills have been almost identical. We're going to see the same pass from both teams here with a round off back handspring 1.5, round off back handspring full. It's always been really impressive to me to see athletes connect skills. A lot of times when they come out of high school, they have the skills, but they haven't put them together yet. And now we're seeing them connect all of these skills together.
And for the Lions, we have number 20, Arwen Mammer. Little deviation there, but she's pretty proud of that pass.
Yeah, a little lack of continuity with her step out there, which led to the deviation that we saw at the end.
So what we mean by deviation is you want to be where you started is where you finish at the same angle or position that you started. So you want to make sure that your athletes are stepping out straight, small things like that. But I think she's pretty happy that she landed. I didn't see major deductions other than that.
No, me either. We want to see that athlete tumble from corner to corner. And when they go off of that line, that's what we're talking about with that deviation. With lack of continuity, we want to see these skills flow together seamlessly. And so there we saw a little bit of lack of continuity when she stepped out. The skill got a little bit slower. But overall, great pass. And a very difficult pass to compete.
And we're going to see that same pass from Coker, from number 1, Sasha Thompson. This is the hardest time to keep that energy up because there's a lot of officials who are judging these skills, and sometimes it can take a little while. It's the most nerve-wracking, I would say, too.
I would agree. A lot of times you see the athletes on the sideline, they're trying to stay warm. They're trying to continue to warm up for the team event coming. And a lot of times these last two events will take the longest to score because there are so many different skills that the judges are looking at. And always nerve-wracking as the athlete that's about to compete. You're waiting to hear your name called.
Beautiful skill.
That was a beautiful pass. Her step out, floated. It was beautiful.
I love their little chants to each of them. It's really cute.
That was always one of the funnest parts of competing in the sport. Just coming up with your celebrations after the tumbling passes.
Right. And we're going to move on to our open pass. This will be the final heat before our team event. Mars Hill has a start value of a 9.40, where we will see that 10.0 pass from Coker. First time in history. Well, not first time. She was the first time when she competed it a couple weeks ago, but this will be her second time competing this, I think second time competing this 10.0 start value that she's been working so hard on.
Yeah, for Mars Hill, we're going to see a round off, then we're going to see 2 whips straight into a back full. So we're going to see 3 non-hand elements in a row. Extremely difficult to do. A lot of times you get that power from those back handsprings. And so what we're looking for here is for her to continue to get power from those whips going into that full.
And we will see number 21, Caitlin Huffman. It's okay. Sometimes that can happen. She just had a lot of power, I think, trying to connect those skills.
Yeah, like we said earlier, that's an extremely difficult pass. Right now, the important thing is her teammates picking her back up going into the last event.
There's always so much pressure, on those athletes that are standing there waiting. Like we said, things like that can happen, and hopefully she can get it back together and she'll be okay.
Agreed. So now we're going to see that 10.0 pass from Coker.
Olivia Sisson.
And she'll be competing a front tuck, round off back handspring 1.5, round off back handspring full. This is the pass that Coach Lou said earlier in the season that she competed through to a tuck, even though it didn't add a lot to her start value to add that tuck at the end, but she wanted her to be confident when she knew she was going to move her up to doing a full at the end of the pass.
Which is a very smart coaching move from Coach Lou.
Great decision from a first-year head coach.
It's really fun to see athletes that we coached against now are coaches, yes, or athletes that we coached, like Olivia, who are now coaching in this sport. So many opportunities come out from acrobatics and tumbling, and you learn life skills and incredible athletic skills.
Yeah, a lot of these head coaches were here competing once in this conference tournament, so now they're taking a different role and coaching it for a lot of them for the first time.
We're very thankful that Conference Carolinas puts on a tournament like this. Not a lot of schools have a conference who can compete for postseason play. And with that 10.0 start value, we have number 8, Olivia Sisson. Good pass. A little lack of continuity on that step out. It's pretty short. She was trying to keep it on the mat, I think, and which can be very hard. But she did really well at executing.
Yeah, that's a lot of skills to be connecting. She had the front tuck and she had to step out of that. And then she had the 1.5 and she had to step out of that. But she executed it really well. She has great body positions in the air.
That 10.0 start value will help them continue their lead for sure.
And that front tuck on this hard floor is a very difficult skill.
I thought her height on that was very good.
Yes, I did too.
Okay, while we're waiting on these results, we will talk about our final event of the meet, the team event. The team event encompasses everything you just watched in the first 5 events. The team event features up to 24 athletes on the floor at one time performing skills in acro, toss, pyramid, and tumbling in a routine set to music. Each routine contains required skills and optional skills, and the start value is based on the difficulty of skills selected to fulfill requirements. Execution deductions are the same in this event as in previous events. Larger deductions are applied if an athlete falls or does not complete a skill. This is a very fast-paced event, so be sure to keep your eyes on the mat. Probably one of it will come down to this, I think. You know, points matter. It holds up to 110 points total of the meet. So the biggest thing as a coach, you want to get your athletes together and say, all right, this is where it matters. Go out there, leave everything on the mat, especially in a setting like this in the semifinals. It's so important to be able to move on.
Agreed. This is one of the things that Coker's Coach Lou, talked about, was that team event is their strength, and it has helped them come back in some of their tight meets and been the difference maker. So a lot of times we will see this event make the biggest difference in a meet, and you can be very close going into team event, and the scores end up with a big differentiation at the end.
Agreed. I think that, what we're going to see is both teams, they do have a little variation in their start value. Both are under that 100 mark, with Mars Hill having a 96.89 and Coker with a 99.13. But we know how easily that can change.
Yeah, you might see a bigger difference in start values in team events. And that goes back to the strategy of the teams and the coaches. And
whatever is clean.
Yes, whatever they think is cleanest and that their team can execute is what they're going to go with.
Alrighty, we have our scores for tumbling for our duo pass. For Mars Hill, we have a 7.525. And then for Coker, we have a 7.775. For our trio, for Mars Hill, a 7.525. And for Coker, 7.150. For our quad, we have a 6.650 for Mars Hill and a 6.550 for Coker. And our aerial pass, we have Mars Hill 8.475 and for Coker 8.800. For 6 element for Mars Hill, we have 8.325. And then for Coker, we have an 8.800. For our open pass, for Mars Hill, we have 6.975, and for Coker, a 9.100. Our event total for Mars Hill, 45.475, and for Coker, 48.175. Leaving our running totals, Mars Hill, 155.250, and Coker, 159.350. So again, differentiation is not huge, and you can make up a lot of points in team event. So they just want to go out there and execute all the skills that they can. So we will watch their team event, and we will be back. So they completed their team event. Probably not the way they expected to. There's a little bit of deductions there for busts and tumbling, things like that. But overall, I thought their acro sequences were great. I thought their pyramids were very solid. Just, it's really hard. You're under pressure. It's also been a long meet. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration for that. But overall, I mean, really not bad. They're just going to have a few deductions for those busted tumbling passes.
Yeah, that will be their biggest deduction coming from that team event, is those few tumbling passes that did not hit. Their tosses looked great.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the height
Beautiful
of their
full
tosses is remarkable. Pyramids looked great. Acros had a little bit of synchronization things going on, but overall, I mean, great routine.
Great job from Mars Hill today, coming out strong. Just had to have their quarterfinals meet against Converse. They made it to the semis, which is a huge thing for their program. They've improved so much over the years.
Yeah, that team should be extremely proud of making it to this point and also having a great meet today. Of course, little things are going to happen, and that happens to everybody. It happens to every team. You're not perfect 100% of the time. But overall, they've competed a great meet. They've held their own, and they have a strong program.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where they can go from here, but definitely should be extremely proud of themselves. Takes a little while for the officials to score a team event. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, when they're looking at so many different skills and having to watch everything that's going on, it's going to take a little bit longer for them to be able to judge this event. So we'll have a little bit of a break here.
And that's where the home team does kind of have the advantage. You go second, so you have more time to breathe from your last tumbling heat to team event, where it can be a good or bad thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say.
As a coach, I would just keep them not even standing on the sideline. I used to just have them walking around, talking to their teammates, staying really loose.
Staying busy.
Mm-hmm. Because some of my athletes did not like to just sit and stare.
Yes.
Another reminder is we will have event finals tomorrow morning. The same place. And we will see all of the teams of the conference coming together to compete for a conference event title.
Yeah, and we'll see both of these teams coming out and competing in several different heats for those event finals, trying to take home an individual title.
The winner of this meet will move on to tomorrow's final meet at 5 p.m. against Limestone University. Here at Conference Carolinas, we are committed in Conference Carolinas to providing our student athletes with an unparalleled championship experience. Please visit conferencecarolinas.com/championships to learn more about all the 2024-2025 Conference Carolinas championships.
You hear the Coker fans getting loud in the stands as they're about to go into their team event.
Coker does start with more of an advantage other than their lead, with a 99.13 start value for their team event.
And all of these start values for team event are out of a 110. It is extremely difficult to have that perfect start value.
Some of the best teams don't even have that perfect start value. So
even the best teams in the nation are not going to have that 110 start value.
Sometimes cleanliness wins, right? So you might not have all the difficult skills in the team event if they cannot execute during the team event.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll see a team that has a lower start value come out on top after this team event because of how clean they compete the skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's up to our coaches to decide what they think is best. If the athletes are confident in their skills, let's raise the start value.
Alrighty, and here comes Coker with the start value of 99.13. Great routine from Coker.
Very clean routine.
Very clean. Small timing issues in tumbling. One bust.
Yeah, we saw one fall in a tumbling pass. A lot of their tumbling was well synchronized too. A lot of their running tumbling was right in sync, similar to what we saw in their tumbling event.
You can tell the difficulty was a little bit harder. I think they were all trying to keep it together, and great pyramids. Just as a reminder, there are specific requirements that you have to have. You have to have 3 tosses that are the same. So I think there was a little mishap on that. You have to have 5 total, but the 3 have to be synchronized. You have to have 4 pyramids total. 2 have to be synchronized. So they did their first 2 synchronized. Tumbling, you have to have up to 21 passes. You can have more. There's some variances in that, so.
Yeah, one of the things with tosses as well is, well, really anything, acro, pyramid, or tosses, once you compete that skill, you cannot compete that skill again in team event. So that was also a little mishap that we saw, as we saw a back full toss early in the routine, and then we saw another one go in the middle of the routine.
Great job to both teams, actually all teams today who competed in the semifinals for the Conference Carolinas Championship. It's a very tough conference, and it's nice to see some other teams getting in, like Mars Hill. And
yeah, one thing that's unique about Conference Carolinas is there are so many teams in the conference now that you cannot play every team throughout the regular season. And it used to be that that's how you got seeded for the conference tournament, was based off of who beat who. I mean, it still is, but you don't play every single team. So this is the first matchup that we've actually seen this season with Coker and Mars Hill. Even though they're in the same conference, they just didn't end up on each other's schedule.
Right. That is a good thing to note. But very comparable teams. Worked really hard all year, so the winner will face Limestone University tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Coker, this will be back-to-back years if they make it to the tournament. Right?
Last year we had Lander and Limestone in the final.
You're right.
But
it was
the
2
year
years
before
before.
that, the year before that, it was Coker Limestone.
Yes. This will be their second year making it to the finals. That was my fault.
Second year is the number 2 seed going
there you
into
go.
the tournament.
Okay. These years start running together. It's my 3rd year doing this now. Well, Emily, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Being on this side of the table with you.
It is different. Seeing it from this angle, our coaches have to stay towards the side when they're coaching, so you don't always see exactly what the judges are seeing, which can make it difficult when you're going throughout a meet and you don't know where
trying to see what they saw.
Right,
yeah.
Trying to see what they saw, and you can't see everything from where you are on the sideline. So it's definitely a different view. You can see everything from the front of the map.
Shout out to King University for hosting the Conference Carolinas Championships. This is the 3rd time we've hosted. Just awaiting these scores.
And we will see both of these teams again tomorrow in our event finals.
And it looks like we do have our scores in.
Both teams should be very proud of what they competed today.
Congratulations to everyone who made it to the semifinals. And we have the final score for team event from Mars Hill, 64.390. And for Coker, 72.830. Our total, Mars Hill, 219.640. And Coker, 232.180. Congratulations, Coker. You will be in the finals for the championship tomorrow night at 5 p.m. This is Miranda Regan. I'm here with Emily Lewis, and we will see you tomorrow.